Commander Elena Reyes stood on the landing platform of Valaris Thurfi's central colony, her boots crunching on the pale, dusty surface. Two suns hovered low on the horizon, casting long, golden beams across the quiet settlement. In the soft light, white domes and silver towers shimmered like scattered pearls. Elena felt the familiar thrill of exploration mixed with a quiet worry. Every new day on this world brought promise and danger. Elena was tall and confident, with dark hair pulled back in a tight braid. She wore the standard-issue environmental suit, its thin fabric glowing with faint blue markers. She had been chosen to lead this mission because of her steady mind and calm voice. Each morning she woke before dawn to review the day's tasks: resource surveys, habitat checks, life support maintenance. Yet beneath her steady calm, a small knot of nerves lay hidden. This planet was beautiful, but unpredictable. Dr. Kira Valen watched Elena from the observation window of the xenobiology lab. Kira was unlike most of her Zernian peers. On her homeworld, emotion was carefully measured, and compassion was often seen as a distraction. But Kira had always felt deeply, and she had studied humans for their rare warmth and open hearts. Assigned as the colony's chief xenobiologist, she had stepped willingly into uncharted territory, both on the map and within her own heart. That morning, a call crackled through the base's comm system. Commander Reyes to Patrol Shuttle, Echo 1, please report for departure. Elena tilted her head and glanced at the rising suns. The air was calm. She expected a routine flight to scan nearby mineral deposits, but Kira watched her friend gather her gear and wondered if this mission might test them both in ways none could predict. The patrol shuttle sat at the edge of the landing pad, its sleek carbon fiber hull curved like a bird's wing. Inside, the cockpit was small, lit by glowing holoscreens that displayed wave patterns, flight paths, and system checks. Elena strapped herself into the pilot's seat and breathed deeply. She tapped a screen, and the engines hummed to life. Blue-green, energy arcs danced along the wings. Then the craft lifted smoothly into the bright sky. Below them, the colony shrank to a cluster of dots. Above, the twin suns framed a vast sky of lilac and gold. Elena adjusted the throttle, and the shuttle climbed toward the jagged ridges of a nearby mountain range. The sun's heat rose off the rocky slopes in shimmering waves. In the cockpit mirror, Elena caught sight of a small device taped to the panel, a holographic photo of her family back on Earth. She had left behind a daughter only 5 years old. Every word she spoke on the radio was a promise to return safely. Suddenly, the holoscreens flickered. A surge of warning icons flashed across the glass canopy. Plasma storm incoming, the autopilot intoned in its clipped voice. Elena's heart skipped. The sensors showed a swirling mass of charged particles growing fast. The storm was not on any chart. She hit the comm button. Base, this is Echo 1. I'm detecting an uncharted plasma cell. Advise? Static crackled back. Then, return immediately. That storm moves faster than our models. Elena set a course back to the colony, but as she banked, a bright flare shot across the sky, crackling along the shuttle's wing. Alarms blared. The craft shook with a violent jolt. Elena gritted her teeth, fighting to keep control. Instruments spun. The shuttle twisted sideways, caught in a turbulent wave of energy. The sky outside turned a furious violet. She tried to steer clear, but the storm's edge was too close. At that moment, another ship surged out of the haze, a Zernian rescue vessel, its hull etched with graceful curves. Dr. Kira Valen guided it with steady hands. She had been overhead, in a scientific survey craft, and saw the shuttle falter. Without hesitation, Kira angled her ship between Elena and the raging storm. Energy fields warped around the rescue vessel as it brushed the storm's fringe. Kira hailed Elena. Commander, Reyes, hold steady. I'll get you out. Her voice was clear but sharp with worry. Elena glanced at the wing's glowing cracks and nodded. She throttled down, and the rescue ship sweep had in close. Kira's engines flared, creating a shimmering shield of plasma-resistant particles. With a careful maneuver, the rescue vessel hooked Elena's shuttle and tugged it away from danger. The plasma storm roared behind them, arcs of purple lightning dancing like wild spirits. Kira pushed her engines to the limit. The bond between the two ships strained but held. With one final surge, they broke free of the storm's edge. The violet sky snapped back to soft gold and lilac. Elena exhaled a long breath she had not known. She held. Back on the landing pad, crew members rushed forward, checking systems and securing both ships. Elena unstrapped and stumbled out, her suit lights flickering. Kira was already there, her hands steady as she guided Elena down the ramp. They stood side by side beneath the twin suns, chests heaving. Elena turned to Kira and offered a small, grateful smile. In that moment, words seemed too simple. Kira's golden eyes glistened, as if she saw something new in the other woman's face. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Around them, the colony buzzed with energy and relief. But beneath the noise, a quiet connection had formed, one that would bind them in the trials to come. As the suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the settlement, Elena and Kira shared a look that held both promise and fear. They did not know what lay ahead on Valaris IV, but they knew they would face it together. And in that knowledge, each felt a fragile spark of hope. The council chamber of Valaris IV was a wide, domed hall filled with soft light. Long, curved benches rose in tiers around a central platform. On the platform stood Commander Elena Reyes, tall and steady, while Dr. Kira Valen sat among the advisors. Zernian delegates dressed in silver robes watched her with calm, unreadable faces. Human engineers and scientists filled the lower rows, their uniforms bright and practical. Elena opened the session with her clear voice. "We face new challenges. As we expand our habitat domes," she said, "we must balance our resource needs with the safety of everyone here." Murmurs rippled among the humans, but the Zernians remained silent, their sharp eyes fixed on Elena. Kira listened closely, aware that her presence as a Zernian among humans, and humans among Zernians, carried its own weight. When it was her turn to speak, Kira rose carefully. On Zernia, speaking in public meant choosing words with exact care. Yet here, she felt a new freedom to speak from the heart. She described her survey of native plant life and her concern for preserving the fragile ecosystem. "These plants," she said, "hold secrets that may help both our species." The chamber was quiet. A few humans nodded, but several Zernian advisors exchanged uncertain glances. One elder Zernian woman spoke next. "Dr. Valen, your concern is noted, but we must prioritize resource extraction to support the colony's growth." Her tone was polite but firm. Kira felt a knot tighten in her chest. On her homeworld, harmony and collective need guided every choice. Here, urgency and profit sometimes ruled. She searched for a way to bridge the gap. Before Kira could reply, a human engineer stood. "With respect, the Zernian approach is wise. We should integrate conservation and development." His words drew nods from the human side. The Zernians shifted in their seats. They saw humans openly defend an alien colleague, a rarity on Zernia. Elena's gaze met Kira's across the room. In that look, Kira sensed solidarity she had not expected. The lead Zernian advisor frowned. "Commander Reyes, while we appreciate your support, this is a Zernian matter." His voice held an edge like cooled steel. Elena stepped forward, her shoulders straight. "With all due respect," she said, "we are all partners here. Dr. Valen's work benefits everyone. If her research slows resource gathering by a day, it protects our long-term safety." The room fell silent. On Earth, such a defense would be common. On Zernia, it was near heresy. After a tense pause, the elder advisor inclined her head. "Very well. We will allocate additional data gathering time to Dr. Valen's team." The chamber sighed in relief. Kira sank back into her seat, overwhelmed by gratitude and surprise. She had not imagined a human would defend her so fiercely. She realized how deeply humans valued loyalty and protection. When the meeting ended, humans and Zernians mingled in the corridors. Kira walked beside Elena through polished halls lined with holo displays of geological surveys. Kira's mind buzzed with questions about human culture and friendship. She asked Elena why she had risked her standing. Elena smiled without pride. "Because we need each other," she replied. "You are part of this mission. I would defend any member of my crew." Kira felt warmth she could not name. On Zernia, such words of devotion were rare. Feelings were private, not shouted in a council chamber. Yet Elena's words were simple and true. As they passed the habitat modules, Kira thought of the fragile seedlings she cared for. She wondered if human hearts could be as delicate and as strong. Back in her lab, Kira studied hollow images of earth gardens. She watched videos of humans planting seeds and celebrating growth with laughter and song. She paused on a clip of a child presenting a flower to her mother. The child's face was bright with pride, the mother's eyes soft. For the first time, Kira felt a longing so acute it made her chest tighten. Could she ever share such simple joy? That evening, Kira found Elena in the common mess hall. Elena sat alone at a small table, eating stew and reviewing data pads. Kira approached slowly, uncertain of protocol. Humans often welcomed company. Zernians preferred solitude. Elena looked up and patted the seat opposite. "Join me," she said. "I could use your input on the mineral scan." Kira sat and shared her notes. They worked side by side, pointing at charts and maps. At one point, Elena laughed softly at a misaligned graph. Kira looked at her and felt a rush of emotion she could not translate into Zernian words. She smiled back, and their eyes met. Time seemed to pause around them. Later, when they parted, Elena placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. The touch was light, but steady, friendly, protective, hopeful. Kira shivered as if a gentle breeze had passed through her. She watched Elena walk away and felt both joy and fear. The boundary between their worlds was narrowing, and Kira did not know if she was ready. Alone in her quarters, Kira replayed the day's events. She had crossed cultural chasms, spoken in a human way, and felt protected by another being. Yet she also felt the weight of her own expectations and traditions. As she lay down to rest, her last thought was of Elena's warm eyes, and a quiet question formed in her mind. Could a Zernian heart truly open to another? The jagged spires of Velaris northern mountains stood like silent sentinels against the pale sky. Commander Elena Reyes and Dr. Kira Valen huddled at the edge of a newly discovered cave system. Their team had traced unusual mineral signatures, deep below the surface, essential metals for the colony's life support. Now they faced narrow passages, shifting stone, and the unknown darkness beyond. Elena checked her helmet light and turned to Kira. "We'll keep comms open at all times," she said. "Stick close and watch your step. These tunnels can shift without warning." She offered a small, encouraging smile. Kira nodded, adjusting her pack full of scanning instruments. Though she had braved Zernia's most hostile jungles, dark caves on this alien world felt different, isolated, unpredictable. They stepped into the entrance, boots tapping on smooth rock. The air was cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of minerals and moss. Behind them, the mountain's sunlit face disappeared, swallowed by stone. Kira activated her scanner. A soft green beam swept the walls. Strange crystalline veins glowed under her light. She whispered, "These formations, they're unlike anything on Zernia." Elena's light danced ahead, revealing a narrow corridor. "Lead the way," she said. "I'll map our path." Elena unspooled a thin fiber-optic cable as they moved, marking each twist and turn. Their crew watched from above via remote cameras, but nothing could match the tension of being inside the rock itself. After half an hour, the tunnel widened into a high chamber. Stalactites hung like chandeliers, and a shallow pool reflected their lights in trembling patterns. Kira knelt to gather data, her fingers tracing the crystalline veins. "These could boost our energy cells by 20%, she said, excitement in her voice. "If we can harvest them safely, it changes everything." Elena scanned the ceiling. "We need to test a small sample first. I'll set up a remote drill." She tapped commands on her wrist console, a compact rig whirred to life behind her. Kira watched the drill bit sink into the crystal, fragments scattering. Then, without warning, the earth trembled. A low rumble echoed through the chamber. Elena's eyes narrowed. "Caution," she warned. The scanner in her hand spiked with movement data. The ceiling above them cracked. Tiny stones rattled loose. Kira froze, her heart pounding. "Commander, the sensors," she began, but her voice caught as a crack thundered overhead. With a violent shudder, part of the roof collapsed. Dust and pebbles rained down. Elena shouted, "Move!" She grabbed Kira's arm and pulled her back. The drill rig toppled, sparks hissing as it struck the wall. In the chaos, the fiber optic cable snapped, plunging them into darkness. Kira's breath came in quick gasps. Panic clawed at her chest. She dropped to her knees and covered her ears against the aftershock. Elena knelt beside her, placing a firm hand on Kira's shoulder. "Kira," she said calmly, "look at me." Her voice was steady, a beacon in the dark. Slowly, Kira raised her head. Elena's helmet light cut through the cloud of dust, illuminating her friend's pale face. "Breathe with me," Elena murmured. She inhaled deeply, and Kira mimicked her, counting each breath in her mind. 1, 2, 3. Outside, the crew's distant comms crackled. Elena tapped her comm unit. "Echo team, status?" Static filled her ear, then a reply. "We're fine, Commander. Rerouting comlink." Relief washed over Elena. She turned back to Kira. "You're safe," she said softly. Kira swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she replaced the scanner's battery pack. I thought we'd die," she admitted in a small voice. Among her people, admitting fear was nearly taboo. Yet with Elena, she felt she could reveal any weakness. Elena squeezed her shoulder. "I've been in darker caves," she replied, with a grin. "And I've always had someone to pull me through." Her words were simple, but they resonated like a promise. Kira felt a spark of warmth amid the cold stone. Together, they reactivated their lights and the fiber optic line. Elena traced new markers on her wrist console, guiding the team to clear rubble and restore the pathway. Kira focused on her scanner, collecting final readings. Each beeping signal felt like another step toward safety, and toward trust. When the path was stable again, Elena led them out of the chamber. Sunlight filtered through the entrance, dancing on the rocky walls like a welcome. Kira blinked against the glare and took a deep breath of fresh air. Outside, the rest of the survey team cheered softly. Engineers and geologists moved forward to examine the site. Elena and Kira stood side by side, illuminated by sunlight and shared relief. Elena glanced at Kira and asked, "Ready for the rest of the survey?" Kira straightened, her posture confident. She touched the scanner's controls and replied, "Let's finish this, together." Her voice held a new strength, born from facing fear and finding comfort in another. As they moved toward the next tunnel, Kira kept pace with Elena's steady stride. She felt the echo of Elena's calm voice in her mind, guiding her steps. In that moment, Kira understood that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to stand firm with someone you trust. Above them, the twin suns continued their arc across the sky, watching over a team bound not just by mission, but by the fragile, growing bond between a human commander and an alien scientist. And in that bond, they found the strength to face whatever lay deeper within Valaris Varfor's hidden depths. Night fell over Valaris 4 like a soft veil. The colony's domes glowed gently against the dark sky, and the twin moons shone silver blue above the mountains. Commander Elena Reyes stood on a raised platform beside the central dome, looking up at the shifting auroras that danced across the heavens. The light show was created by Valaris's unique magnetic field, and it painted the sky in waves of green, purple, and gold. Around her, the crew and colonists gathered in small groups. Engineers and scientists brought out warm drinks. Children ran laughing between the adults. Hollow projectors displayed images of the day's discoveries, new mineral formations, plant samples sprouting in lab trays, satellite maps of the northern plains. Music played softly from speakers hidden among the domes, mixing human melodies with gentle, lilting Xernian tunes. Dr. Kira Valen stood near the back of the crowd, her arms wrapped around herself as she watched. The cool night air ruffled her dark hair, and the lights from the aurora reflected in her golden eyes. To most Xernians, public celebrations were loud and chaotic. Yet Kira found this gathering peaceful, full of wonder and joy. She smiled at a group of children chasing glowing orbs released by researchers. Each orb drifted upward, bursting into sparks of light, and the children squealed with delight. Elena walked among the colonists, greeting them by name. She paused at a workstation where two human geologists examined mineral samples. "Great work today," she said. "Those samples could power our grid for months." The geologists beamed and returned to their notes. Elena nodded and continued, onward, finally stopping beside Kira. "You look cold," Elena said, offering her jacket without hesitation. The fabric was light but warm, woven with temperature regulators. Kira hesitated, then accepted it. The jacket settled on her shoulders, and she felt a careful warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," Kira replied softly. She glanced up at the sky. "This is beautiful." Elena turned to face the aurora, arms outstretched. "I've seen many worlds, Doctor," she said quietly, "but nothing compares to this." Her voice carried a mixture of awe and something deeper, hope. Perhaps. Kira watched Elena's face in the moonlight, noticing the barest tremor in her jaw, the way her eyes shone. "Why do you stay?" Kira asked after a moment. "You left Earth. Your home. Behind." Elena lowered her arms and met Kira's gaze. "I love Earth with all my heart," she said, "but I needed something more. I wanted to build a future, to discover new places, and I wanted to protect the people I care about." Her eyes searched Kira's. "I've never felt more alive than I do here, with this team, and with you." Kira's breath caught. In Xernian culture, such words of personal feeling were often private. She felt her cheeks warm under Elena's steady gaze. Before she could answer, a cheer rose from the crowd as one of the orbs burst in a particularly vivid bloom of purple sparks. The music swelled, and the crew applauded. Elena smiled at the display, then turned back to Kira. "I don't say this lightly," she continued, "but I need you here. I need you with me." Her tone was gentle yet firm, like the steady hand of a captain at the helm. Kira felt a jolt, in her chest an unfamiliar flutter. She glanced away toward the domes where families clustered beneath hanging lanterns. The laughter and soft music felt distant. Her mind raced. What do I feel? She recalled the cave collapse and how Elena's calm voice had guided her back to safety. She remembered the council meeting and how Elena had defended her so boldly. Now, beneath the twin moons, Elena spoke of need and life with a quiet intensity. Kira's golden eyes shimmered. She realized tears stood at the corners. Fear and wonder collided within her. Fear of breaking her people's customs and wonder at this human's open heart. Without a word, she stepped backward and walked toward the mess hall entrance. Elena watched her go, concern creasing her brow. "Kira?" she called softly, but Kira did not turn. Inside the mess hall, hollow projectors displayed portraits of Earth and Xernia, forests and crystal towers, oceans and mountain peaks. Near the projection wall, a small table held personal mementos collected by the crew. A folded letter from Elena's daughter, a carved Xernian pendant, a pressed flower from a human scientist's home garden. Kira paused before the table, drawn to a tattered holographic photo tucked beside the letter. It showed a human woman, Elena, in a garden full of sunflowers, holding a little girl who beamed at the camera. Kira's heart clenched. The child's bright smile reminded Kira of a young Xernian cousin she once lost to a jungle illness. Emotion welled up and Kira's breath caught. She sank onto a bench nearby and stared at the photo. One tear slipped down her cheek, then another. She brushed her hand across her face, embarrassed by her own reaction. Back on Zernia, no one cried in public. Emotions were private, contained. Yet here, tears washed through her, carrying grief for her cousin and longing she could not name. She missed family in a way she had never allowed herself to feel. And now Elena spoke of building a family together. Kira closed her eyes and let the tears fall. Memories of her home flooded her mind. Her father's gentle voice, her mother's comforting songs. She felt the weight of her cultural walls pressing in, but also the strange lightness Elena's words had given her heart. After a long moment, Kira wiped her cheeks and stood. She took a steadying breath and returned to the open sky. The aurora still danced above, but the platform was empty now. Elena stood alone, looking up. Kira approached quietly. Elena turned, doubt flickering in her eyes. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. Kira nodded, voice catching. I did not expect your words." She paused, fingers brushing the edge of Elena's jacket still draped over her shoulders. "It is hard for me to understand all this feeling." Her metallic voice trembled. "But I want to try." The morning sun rose pale over Valaris 4, turning the dusty plains into fields of gold. The colony was quieter than usual. After last night's celebration, many colonists slept in, but Commander Elena Reyes moved through the corridors with purpose. She carried a small hollow projector in her hand and wore her uniform without the usual crisp precision. Inside, her heart pounded with both excitement and fear. Elena found Kira Valen in the xenobiology lab. Kira was crouched beside trays of glowing seedlings, examining the faint bioluminescence that many hoped would help power colony lights. When she saw Elena standing in the doorway, her golden eyes widened with curiosity. "Elena," Kira greeted, voice soft. "Good morning. Did you need something?" She straightened and brushed a lock of dark hair behind her ear. Elena stepped forward, holding out the hollow projector. I have something to show you," she said. Her voice trembled just enough that Kira noticed. Elena activated the device, and a small, flickering image appeared between them. It was a family portrait from Earth. A smiling woman with dark hair, kneeling beside a little girl holding a sunflower. The image was bright and warm, though slightly pixelated. Kira stared at the hollow photo. "This is you?" she asked quietly, surprised to see Elena's daughter. The child's eyes shone with joy, and the sunflower was almost as tall as she was. Elena nodded, swallowing. "This is Alba. She's 5. She asked me to bring seeds from Earth so she could plant her own sunflowers here." Her chest tightened. "I told her I might not be back in time for her next birthday. She cried and said, 'Mom, I want you to come home.' Then she hugged me and said, 'I want a family with you.'" Kira's breath caught. She stepped closer to look at the hollow image, her usual calm replaced by a gentle concern. "A family," she echoed. Among the Zernian people, family meant more than blood. It was a network of connections, but love was often shown in quiet ceremonies rather than spoken words. Kira realized she had never heard Elena speak of family in such personal terms. Elena reached out and touched Kira's hand. "I want a family. With you, Kira. Not just the crew, but you and me, and someday maybe our own children." Her words floated between them like fragile petals. Kira felt the room spin. Heat rushed to her cheeks and her golden eyes glistened. For a long moment, neither spoke. The lab's soft hum was the only sound. Kira's mind raced with questions. Was it possible for two different species to share such a bond? Could she break with Zernian traditions and accept this human's heartfelt wish? Her heart pounded like a distant drum. Finally, Kira closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She opened them and looked at Elena. "Elena, your words," she began, voice trembling with emotion she rarely expressed. "They are powerful. On Zernia, we do not speak of love so openly. We show respect through action and ceremony." She paused, gathering courage. "But I have learned much from you. You have shown me strength and kindness. You have protected me when I was afraid. You have spoken truth to power in the council. You have stood by me in darkness. Elena's eyes softened. She squeezed Kira's hand. The holophoto's light flickered across their faces. Kira continued, voice steadying. If we choose this path, it will not be easy. We face cultural pressures and the unknown challenges of raising a child on this world. But I want to try. Tears glimmered in Kira's eyes. She blinked them away, then smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that warmed Elena's heart. Elena exhaled, relief flooding her features. She pulled Kira into a gentle embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "I promise I will do everything I can to make this work. We will learn from each other. We will ask for help from our people and teach them too." She stepped back and lifted the holo projector, letting the image of Alba dance in the air between them. Kira reached out and touched the little girl's face in the image, then looked at Elena. "Your daughter? She will have two mothers in a way, and one day she will know that love can cross worlds." Kira's voice was soft, but it carried a strength born of her growing conviction. They stood together in the lab, hands still joined, the golden image of a sunflower-bright girl shining between them. Outside, the twin moons drifted down the morning sky. On Valaris 4, a new family began its first steps, delicate, new, and brimming with hope. A low hum filled the control room of the central reactor facility as engineers monitored gauges and consoles. The heart of Valaris 4's colony pulsed with energy generated deep beneath the planet's crust. Commander Elena Reyes stood at the main console, arms folded, studying the readouts. Dr. Kira Valen hovered at her side, concern furrowing her brow. Suddenly, alarms wailed. Red lights flashed across the room, casting long shadows on the walls. An urgent chime repeated through the speakers. Elena tapped the console, bringing up detailed diagnostics. "Reactor core temperature rising," she announced. "Pressure is spiking faster than expected. Heat exchangers are overloaded." Her voice was calm but firm. "We need to reduce core output and stabilize the coolant flow." An engineer called over the noise. "Core vent valves are stuck. Control lines aren't responding." He punched at his terminal, but the readout stayed red. Elena nodded. "I'll go to the valve manifold. Dr. Valen, you coordinate with the engineering team here. We need command reroutes and manual overrides." Kira hesitated. On Zernia, scientists seldom joined frontline operations. They gathered data, analyzed variables, and then reported. But here, she had seen Elena face danger head-on. Their bond had grown through shared trials. Now, Kira realized, her place was beside Elena, not hidden behind screens. "I'm coming with you," Kira said, surprising both herself and the engineers. Elena offered a quick smile. "Good. Let's move." They donned protective gear and raced down the narrow corridor toward the reactor manifold. Outside, the twin suns hung low, their light dimmed by swirling dust brought in on recycled air. The hum of the reactor grew, louder as they neared the secure door. Elena swiped her ID and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the manifold chamber was bathed in red emergency lighting. Pipes and conduits crisscrossed overhead. A fine mist of coolant vapor hung in the air, reflecting the flashing alarms. Two large valve banks stood at the room's center, each labeled primary and secondary. Elena moved to the primary bank and grabbed a wrench from a tool rack. She tested the valve stem. It wouldn't budge. Sparks flickered at one connector where the control line had burned through. Heat glowed around the pipe joints. Kira knelt by the secondary bank. She scanned the control lines with her handheld sensor. "The secondary lines are damaged too," she said, voice tight. "We have to bypass the automation and engage manual cranks." Elena nodded. "I'll handle the primary. You take the secondary." They worked side by side, elbows brushing in the confined space. Elena's hands turned the manual wheel on the primary valve. It groaned, but turned. Steam hissed as coolant rushed through relief channels. On the secondary side, Kira attached a bypass cable between two control posts. She clamped down the connector and flipped a switch. The valve lever popped out, revealing a manual crank. Kira inserted the crank and began to turn. For a moment, their efforts seemed to balance the reactor's core. The alarms quieted to a slow pulse, but then the main power conduit shuddered and a loud crack echoed from the far wall. A section of pipe cracked, spraying hot coolant across the deck. Elena jumped back, wiping mist from her visor. "We're losing coolant pressure," she shouted. "If we can't restore full flow, the core will overheat." Kira's golden eyes flashed. She abandoned the crank and grabbed Elena's arm. "There's a backup line in the maintenance shaft," she yelled. "It runs parallel to the main feed. We can tap into it." Elena nodded without hesitation. "Lead the way." They darted through a side door into a narrow shaft lit by emergency strips. Pipes ran along one side, disappearing into darkness. Kira checked her sensor again. "Here," she said, pointing to a faintly glowing coupling. "This secondary feed has enough capacity to cool the core, if we can reroute it." Elena knelt and examined the coupling. "We need to unlock this panel." She pressed a sequence on her wrist console. The panel clicked open, revealing a network of wires. Elena traced the wiring, isolating the feed line. Kira set down her sensor and found a set of junction clamps. She handed them to Elena. "Clamp here," she said, pointing. Elena did so swiftly. Sparks flew as the clamps latched onto the pipe. Then Kira flipped a manual valve. The shaft filled with a low roar as coolant surged through the new line. Back in the manifold chamber, the main console lights shifted from red to amber. The alarms slowed. Elena and Kira raced back, adrenaline still pumping. Engineers sprang forward to check gauges. Elena tapped her console. "Coolant flow is stabilizing, core temperature is dropping." She let out a breath she had not realized she held. Kira exhaled too, relief washing over her. She wiped sweat from her brow. "We did it." In the control room, the head engineer approached. "Commander Dr. Valen, you saved the colony," he said, voice sincere. "Thank you." Elena shook his hand, then turned to Kira. Her eyes shone with pride. "You were amazing," she said. "I couldn't have done it without you." Kira felt warmth spread through her chest. Here she was not judged as a scientist or an outsider, but as a partner in action. She met Elena's gaze and smiled. "We did it together." That evening, after the reactor was back online and the colony's power grid hummed steadily, the two returned to the observation deck. Through the glass dome, the twin moons hung low over the landscape, and the first stars of night appeared. Elena leaned against the railing. "Today was dangerous," she said, voice low. "But I'm glad you stood with me." Kira rested her hand on Elena's arm. "I learned that true trust means facing fear side by side." She paused, then whispered, "I trust you completely." Elena turned and kissed Kira's forehead gently. "And I trust you," she replied. In the quiet glow of the observation deck, they stood together, two individuals from different worlds bound by shared trials and the unspoken promise of what came next. The reactor's hum in the distance reminded them of the fragile balance they maintained, between power and danger, between two hearts learning to open, and between the hope of tomorrow and the challenges they would face together. The sky over, Valaris IV blushed with dawn's first light, bathing the colony in soft rose and lavender. The twin moons retreating toward the horizon left behind a pale glow that mingled with the two suns' early rays. On the observation deck of the central dome, Commander Elena Reyes and Dr. Kira Valen stood side by side, looking out at the world they had shaped together. The colony lay quietly below them, its domes and towers gleaming like pearls on a pale sea of dust. Engineers were already at work repairing yesterday's damage. Children dashed between solar collectors on their way to morning classes. Farmers tended to the bioluminescent crops that would light the night. In every corner, life moved forward, unstoppable and hopeful. Elena shifted, brushing a stray lock of dark hair from her face. She carried a small, wrapped bundle cradled in her arms. Kira noticed its soft, rounded shape and smiled with anticipation. "Is it ready?" she asked, voice gentle. Elena nodded. "It is." With a quick motion, she untied the ribbon and unfolded a delicate blanket woven from earth, fibers, and Zernian silk. Nestled inside was a single sprouting sunflower seedling, its green leaves glowing faintly with bioluminescence. The child they imagined would one day plant this in their home garden would watch it grow under both suns and the twin moons. Kira reached out and touched the leaves, feeling their cool, living warmth. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "A symbol of two worlds coming together." Elena smiled, meeting Kira's golden eyes. "Just like us." She placed the seedling carefully in a shallow dish of clear water built into the deck's railing. Light from beneath the dish glowed gently, giving the plant a soft halo. Silence settled between them, comfortable and full of promise. At last, Kira turned to face Elena fully. "We have faced storms, cave collapses, reactor failures, and so much more," she said, voice steady. "Each time we learned from each other. Each time we grew stronger." Elena took Kira's hand in both of hers. "And now we begin the greatest journey of all," she replied. "Building a family, on this world and in our hearts." They stood for a long moment, watches aligned, breathing in the quiet beauty of new morning. Then a soft chime sounded from Elena's wrist console, a reminder of the day's schedule. Yet neither moved to leave. They both ignored the summons, letting that moment stretch. Below, a transmission began on the colony's intercom. Elena tapped her console. The message was from Captain Ortega, the colony's operations lead. "Commander Reyes, Dr. Valen," his voice crackled. "The diplomatic envoy from Zernia will arrive in 20 standard hours. They wish to meet the colony's leadership and its representative from Zernia." Kira's heart fluttered. Official recognition from her home world. At the same time, it brought new challenges. Cultural scrutiny, questions about her relationship with a human commander. She glanced at Elena, unsure. Elena squeezed her hand. "We will face them together," she said. "We will show them what we have built, how we care for this world, and for each other." Her confidence was a steady flame in Kira's chest. Kira nodded, drawing strength from Elena's resolve. "Yes," she agreed. "We will welcome them and share our story." They turned back to the small sunflower. Kira traced a finger along a fresh bud. "This plant will grow as our family grows," she said. "Roots deep in Valaris IV's soil, leaves reaching for both suns." Elena watched Kira's face, warmed by pride. "One day," she said softly, "our child will stand here, pulling seeds from this plant to sow in the garden. They will know both their worlds." A gentle breeze drifted through the open observation deck, carrying hints of the colonies, scent, metal, dust, green life, and hope. The two women closed their eyes, feeling the world breathe around them. When they opened their eyes again, Elena leaned forward and pressed her forehead to Kira's. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing this path with me." Kira's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you," she replied, "for showing me that love can bridge any divide." They stood together as the suns climbed higher, and the twin moons slipped below the horizon. Around them, Valaris IV awakened fully, winds stirring dust, solar arrays beginning their charge, the colony's heart beating steadily once more. In that quiet dawn, humanity and Zernian life intertwined. The little sunflower seedling glowed brightly, a living promise of what would come. Elena and Kira clasped hands and stepped away from the railing, ready to face whatever their future held. United as leaders, explorers, and most dearly, as family.